There is a theory spreading across the internet that Britain's royal family is hiding its true surname, a name that supposedly traces back to a lost empire called Tartary. And it is true that the Windsors buried a name in 1917. It just isn't the one the internet thinks. Scroll through social media today and you will find posts pointing to old European maps. These documents, dating from the 17th and 18th centuries, clearly show a massive territory stretching across northern Asia labelled Tartaria or Grand Tartary. Nearby, creators share videos of stone buildings in London, New York and Paris. They point to the basement windows, half submerged below the pavement, claiming these are remnants of a worldwide mud flood that wiped this advanced empire from the history books. In this digital narrative, the British royal family is the gatekeeper of the secret. The theory claims the monarchy changed its name to hide its connection to this lost civilization, burying the evidence under a manufactured family tree. The maps are real. The half-buried Victorian basements exist. Map makers did use the term Tartaria to describe the vast unexplored regions of Central Asia, and 19th century builders regularly dug half floors to create more space. But the conspiracy theory takes these genuine physical artifacts and weaves them into a fantasy. There is indeed a hidden royal name locked away in state archives and wartime diaries. But the real reason the palace abandoned its ancestral identity has nothing to do with a mythical empire, and everything to do with a desperate struggle for survival. Before 1917, the British royal family did not carry the name Windsor. Instead, the reigning dynasty bore a distinctly German surname, Saxe-Coburg-Gotha. This line was a cadet branch of the House of Windsor, an ancient German dynasty that had ruled various European territories, duchies, and principalities for centuries. This lineage officially entered the British line of succession on February 10, 1840, when Queen Victoria married Prince Albert of Saxe-Coburg-Gotha at the Chapel Royal. Under the genealogical rules of the era, children took the dynastic name of their father rather than their mother, passing the Wettin line to a new generation. When their eldest son ascended the throne in 1901, as King Edward VII, he officially established the House of Saxe-Coburg-Gotha as the name of the reigning dynasty of the United Kingdom. This complex foreign label is the real hidden name that modern internet myths only dimly sense. It was never a secret, but rather a matter of public record, printed on royal proclamations and detailed in the Almanach de Gotha. For decades, the British public accepted this continental heritage as a standard feature of European royal alliances, but as the early 20th century progressed, geopolitical alliances shifted, and the family's deep Germanic roots became an increasingly dangerous political liability. By 1914, the geopolitical map of Europe was dominated by three men who were not just rival heads of state, but close relatives. King George V of Great Britain stood as a first cousin to both Kaiser Wilhelm II of Germany and Tsar Nicholas II of Russia. Their familial ties were written directly onto their faces. Contemporary photographs of George V and Nicholas II show a physical resemblance so striking they could pass for identical twins sharing the same heavy-lidded eyes, trimmed beards and structured features. Even Wilhelm II shared unmistakable family traits. This shared bloodline meant that on the eve of the First World War, three of the world's most powerful empires were governed by members of a single, deeply interconnected family. Yet, this intimate dynastic network offered no protection against industrial warfare. When mobilization orders were signed, private family relationships collided directly with public national identities. The bonds of cousinship faded as national interest took over, turning a family gathering into a global conflict that threatened to tear down the very thrones they inherited. By the spring of 1915, the early expectation of a quick conflict had vanished, replaced by the grim realities of industrial warfare. On May 7, 1915, a German U-boat torpedoed the British ocean liner RMS Lusitania off the coast of Ireland, killing nearly 1,200 passengers. This catastrophe transformed abstract geopolitical rivalry into a raw, immediate fury that swept through British towns and cities. In the days following the sinking, long simmering resentment erupted into street violence. In London, mobs targeted anyone and anything with German connections. On Crisp Street in Poplar, angry crowds smashed the windows of German-owned shops with bricks, ransacking properties and chasing residents from their homes. Across the country, Home Office records documented thousands of attacks on German bakeries, butcher shops and private residences. This hostility quickly expanded beyond physical property. Cultural organisations faced immense pressure to purge foreign influences. Concert organisers, including Sir Henry Wood at the Promenade concerts, removed works by German composers from their schedules, silencing the music of Bach, Beethoven and Wagner in public halls. Even family pets became targets of public hostility. Dachshunds, closely associated with Germany, were viewed as living symbols of the enemy. Cartoonists depicted the breed as a caricature of the German military, and citizens reported instances of the dogs being hissed at, kicked, or stoned in public high streets. For ordinary British families carrying German surnames, survival meant erasing their heritage. Thousands of citizens quietly filed paperwork to anglicise their names, swapping continental spellings for English equivalents to protect their businesses and ensure their personal safety. In this environment of intense suspicion, any connection to Germany carried immediate danger. This societal pressure mounted daily, moving closer to the royal household. The hostility soon reached the highest levels of British intellectual life. In the spring of 1917, the prominent author H.G. Wells wrote to the press, publicly dismissing the monarchy as an alien and uninspiring court. This hostile judgment targeted the very identity of the royal family during a devastating war. The attack hit a nerve. George V reportedly fired back with a sharp reply. "I may be uninspiring, but I'll be damned if I'm an alien." While this retort does not appear in official palace diaries or state archives, its survival in historical folklore captures how exposed the crown felt. This public exchange showed that the monarchy was no longer shielded by tradition. The court was being openly judged by its citizens, and its foreign heritage had become an active threat. For George V, symbolic survival was no longer a matter of prestige, it had become a practical necessity for the preservation of the throne. On June 13, 1917, the threat materialised in the sky. A squadron of German Gotha G4 heavy bombers appeared over London in broad daylight, launching the first daylight air raid on the British capital. The bombers dropped 72 bombs within a 1-mile radius of Liverpool Street Station. The attack killed 162 civilians, including 18 infants, and wounded 432 others, leaving devastated neighbourhoods in its wake. In the days that followed, newspapers splashed the horror across front pages. Headlines warned of the Gotha raids and Gotha bombers. For the British public, the word Gotha became synonymous with terror, fire, and civilian slaughter. This created an immediate devastating collision inside Buckingham Palace. The ruling dynasty of the United Kingdom was officially the House of Saxe-Coburg-Gotha. The exact word printed in newspapers to describe the enemy aircraft killing British families was the family name of the king himself. The association was politically toxic. During a Parliament session on July 20, 1917, members of Parliament openly questioned whether a royal house sharing its name with the enemy's bombers could retain the loyalty of the nation. The physical threat of the war had merged with a linguistic crisis. The family's German heritage was no longer an abstract concern, it was dropping bombs on British soil. The monarchy did not just need a public relations adjustment, it required a complete erasure of its ancestral identity. On July 17, 1917, King George V signed the royal proclamation that legally severed his family from its German origins. Published in the London Gazette under issue number 30,186, the official document declared that the royal family would entirely abandon the name Saxe-Coburg-Gotha. From that day forward, the family and all of Queen Victoria's British male line descendants would carry a brand new surname, relinquishing all foreign titles, degrees and dignities. Finding that new name had required weeks of quiet panic inside the palace. The King's private secretary, Lord Stamfordham, had carefully vetted a short list of alternatives. Some advisors suggested historic English dynasties like Tudor, Plantagenet or York. Others proposed simply using the name England, but each option carried unwanted political baggage. Tudor recalled religious upheaval and violence, Plantagenet evoked medieval civil wars, and England felt far too provocative for an empire that included Scotland, Wales and Ireland. Instead, The king looked to the physical symbols of the monarchy. He chose Windsor, after the grand fortress built by William the Conqueror in the 11th century. The name was perfect. It was solid, ancient, and unmistakably British. By linking the family name to a stone castle that had survived centuries of domestic conflict, the king anchored his embattled dynasty to English soil itself. The sudden change did not escape the notice of his foreign relatives. When news of the proclamation reached Germany, Kaiser Wilhelm II mocked his cousin's sudden identity shift. He joked that he was looking forward to seeing a theatrical production of Shakespeare's famous play, The Merry Wives of Saxe-Coburg-Gotha. The Kaiser's sarcasm pointed to a historical reality that debunks modern internet myths. The surname Windsor is not an ancient secret preserved from a legendary lost empire. It was a pragmatic, modern invention, manufactured in a wartime boardroom in 1917 to save a crown under threat. The royal family was not hiding a connection to a mythical land called Tartary. They were actively erasing their very real, very documented German heritage to survive the fury of the 20th century. This purging of German heritage extended far beyond the immediate royal household. The King's July proclamation triggered a systematic nationwide rewrite of foreign identities among the British nobility. For families with centuries of continental lineage, survival required an immediate public shift to English-sounding names. The most prominent change occurred within the Battenberg family. Prince Louis of Battenberg, a former First Sea Lord, abandoned his ancestral name by letters patent on July 18, 1917. He translated the German Battenberg, which means Mountain of the Bat, into the literal English equivalent, Mountbatten. Similarly, the House of Teck underwent a complete linguistic overhaul. The relatives of Queen Mary surrendered their German titles. Prince Adolphus of Teck became the Marquis of Cambridge, and Prince Alexander of Teck became the Earl of Athlone. Across the British aristocracy, families of German descent quietly dismantled their ancestral identities, replacing duchies and principalities with domestic peerages. This deliberate process of dynastic renaming was not a temporary wartime measure. Decades later, the monarchy continued to manage its identity with identical strategic precision. On February 8, 1960, Queen Elizabeth II issued a new declaration in council. She decreed that her male line descendants who did not hold the title of Royal Highness would bear the hyphenated surname Mountbatten Windsor. This move permanently fused the two anglicised wartime names, proving that the construction of the Windsor identity remained a highly calculated, ongoing effort to control the royal family's public image. The word Tartaria itself has a thoroughly documented history, far removed from any lost high-tech empire. On early European maps, Tartary was not a unified country, but a vague geographical label. Mapmakers used it to designate the vast, poorly understood expanses of Central Asia and Siberia, much like they wrote here be dragons on unexplored oceans. The name derived from the Tatars, a collective term Western Europeans applied loosely to various Mongol and Turkic peoples. As explorers mapped these regions and geographical knowledge improved, this placeholder label gradually vanished from maps, replaced by precise borders and names. Yet the old maps remain, and their strange sweeping labels offer the perfect canvas for modern internet mythology. The theory spreads because the promise of a hidden past is deeply satisfying, particularly when wrapped in genuine historical artifacts. Old maps look mysterious, and in an era of deep institutional distrust, the idea of a massive, suppressed history feels far more compelling than the dry reality of cartographic progress. The archives leave no room for speculation. The House of Windsor did bury a former name, but the reality of that erasure is recorded in wartime minutes, not conspiracy forums. King George V abandoned Saxe-Coburg-Gotha as a calculated act of public relations and survival during the global conflict of the First World War. This rebranding saved a dynasty from public fury and German bomber raids. No parchment, state record, or diplomatic dispatch supports the myth of a hidden Tartarian bloodline. The actual history of the British Crown is not a tale of a lost empire, but a masterclass in political adaptation. Today, the urge to invent lost empires reveals a deep distrust of official histories. When institutions quietly rebrand to survive, digital folklore easily fills the blanks. The past isn't hidden by cosmic conspiracies, but by ordinary public relations. What do you think about the Tartaria myth? Subscribe for more historical deep dives.